I'm going to call to order this meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals, June 26, 2025. It's now 5:30. Are we recording in the back? I'll say that again.
Recording
I'll
in
call to order
progress.
this Board of Zoning Appeals meeting, June 26, 2025 at 5:30 p.m. Could we have a roll call, please?
Ballard.
Here.
Burrell. Here. Fernandez. Shade.
Here.
Throckmorton.
Here. We had minutes distributed. Do we have a motion to approve, or do we have amendments?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second? Roll call.
Burrell. Yes. Fernandez.
Yes.
Shade.
Yes.
Throckmorton.
Yes.
Ballard.
Yes.
Do you have any reports, resolutions, or communications? Recognize Jackie.
Scanlon, Assistant Director. The one we have tonight is that the sixth petitioner tonight listed in your packet, V2625, All-American Storage, Sam Heel, has asked to be continued to the July Board of Zoning Appeals hearing. They were able to get some kind of last-minute engineering that they want to go over with the city, and that wasn't able to be done by tonight. So they've asked that you vote to continue that petition.
I have a motion to continue. I need a motion to continue V-26-25 to the next meeting.
So moved.
Have a second? Say it again. All right. Roll call.
Fernandez.
Yes.
Shade.
Yes.
Throckmorton.
Yes.
Ballard.
Yes.
Burrell. Yes.
Any other reports, resolutions, or communications from staff?
From staff.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to change the order of hearing tonight and bring CU-24-25 to the first, keeping the others from V11-25 in order following that. Do I have a second? Roll call, please.
Shade.
Yes.
Throckmorton.
Yes.
Ballard.
Yes.
Burrell. Yes. Fernandez.
Thank you. All right, so therefore tonight we will have the following petitions. First of all, let me just state the petitions that will be continued to July 24, 2025. AA-17-22 Joe Kemp Construction and Blackwell Construction. CU-33-24 Hat Reynolds LLC. V-13-25 Carolina Lopez. V-22-25 Autovest. And then we have just added V-26-25, and I think that's Steele. Is that right? John Steele? What was the name on that? All-American Storage, Sam Heel. Thank you. All right, those will be continued. And then, therefore, tonight we will be hearing the following. We will start with CU-26-25, followed by V-11-25, V-1925, V-20. 25 V-2125. Okay, so with that, we'd like to hear the first petition. This will be CU-24-25 North College Partners LLC. Can I have a staff report, please? And for those with the packet, that's on page 134.
Thank you. Sorry for the brief delay there.
No, we understand that we asked for a change in order at the last minute, so take your time.
All right. So, case C, Eric Grulich, Development Services Manager. So I am here tonight to present a petition from North College Partners, LLC, for a site at 717 South Henderson Street. The petitioners are here tonight to request conditional use approval to allow for a dwelling, duplex in the residential small lot zoning district. So as I mentioned, this is at 717 South Henderson Street. This is zoned R3 residential small lot. The property was recently developed with a single-family residence. On the north side of the property, there is another lot that is owned by the petitioner that is just to the south of this lot that is platted, or I'm sorry, has a conservation easement on it. There is a 12-foot wide platted alley that runs along the north side of this property, and the petitioner is here tonight to request approval to allow for a duplex on the northern lot. And this would be accomplished by removing the existing building that is on the property, the existing residence, and constructing a new duplex. So the duplex would be oriented towards Henderson Street and has been designed with a four-square architectural design. This is something that is found in other residences along this block. There is a parking spot for 2 parking spaces located off of the alley on the north side of the site. So this would be a 20-foot by 20-foot pad to provide parking for the use. The duplex would have 2 units, as I mentioned, with doors facing Henderson Street. Inside, there would be a stairs to take you to the second floor. There would be 1 bedroom on the ground floor with 2 bedrooms on the upper floor. So you can see in the rendering here, there is a patio that is shown, or a porch more specifically, along the front of this. As the board is probably aware from other petitions that we have heard for duplexes, there are various use-specific standards that pertain to these. Specifically related to design of the building in relation to surrounding buildings, incorporation of porches similar to other porches, roof slope and design, as well as parking orientation. So other neighbor or other residences within here, and there are 2 specific examples within the neighborhood that have a 4-square design along this block that the petitioner has used as a model to design this. Parking is located off of the alley, so that is similar and actually is required here since there is an improved alley, and does incorporate a patio that is similar to other residences along here. With the use-specific standards, we do find that this meets those requirements. Conditional uses for duplexes are also required to hold a neighborhood meeting. This is adjacent to the Bryan Park and Elm Heights neighborhood associations, so the petitioner did present to those neighborhoods. The neighborhood had a variety of questions, some related to mostly a lot of the use of the lot to the south that I mentioned has a conservation easement. There were questions regarding the amount of parking that is being provided and if that is enough for this property and this use. And then there's some questions about reusing some of the existing materials within the existing residence for this proposed building. So the neighborhood concerns or questions, there wasn't a lot of concerns, I guess, or questions that the petitioner could establish or do much about other than providing additional parking. So the UDO does limit parking to when you have access from an alley to a 20-foot by 20-foot pad. So they've shown that, as I mentioned, on the north side of the site, and so that is the extent of what the UDO allows. The parking minimum is 1 parking space for this use, so the petition does meet that minimum, and so they are kind of bound by what the UDO allows for parking in terms of what is shown and provided here. So with that, as with all of these petitions, they are evaluated for the general compliance criteria. So as I mentioned, there are use-specific standards that pertain to a duplex. As I mentioned, this does address all of those in regards to the roof pitch, the patio incorporation, parking off of an alley, and the building setbacks. So it is compliant with all of the requirements within the UDO. This is in line with the goals of the comprehensive plan as well, that encourages infill development and diversity of housing within the community, as well as complementary design. So those are all accomplished with the use-specific standards, and the petition meets all of those. So the petitioner would be required to install street trees along the front, and those have been shown as well. The new construction does also require a new sidewalk along this property, which has been shown as well. So with that, we are recommending that the board adopt the proposed findings as outlined in your packet and recommends approval with the 3 conditions that are listed in the staff report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. At this point, we will go to the petitioners. And for those here tonight that are going to be speaking as petitioner or as part of the petitioner, you'll get 20 minutes. That 20 minutes can be used now during the first statement, or it can be reserved until later. You'll have 2 opportunities to use that 20 minutes. So do we have the petitioner with us? Come forward. And if you would, go ahead and sign in there. And then when you're ready, state your name, first and last name, please.
Ernest Shi,
Do you-
XI.
Do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
It is.
Okay, again, you'll have 20 minutes.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Eric for his presentation. I think it summarizes it quite well. We tried to create a design that was already found in currently in the neighborhood. We really tried to, have everything be, as laid out in the UDO. Nothing, no variances or anything like that requested. So just a standard conditional use approval. But definitely happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. You can reserve the rest of your 19 minutes and
Please.
30 seconds till later if
Thank
you
you.
have anything further. We'll come back to the board for questions of the staff and/or the petitioner. Do I have any?
So as I understand, he got approval from the neighborhood, or did he need approval from the neighborhood?
Yes, as I mentioned, they met with the Bryan Park and Elm Heights neighborhood. We don't, in these situations, look for a kind of formal letter of support or approval, but really it's just kind of an avenue to hear comments and concerns. If there are things that the petitioner can address, then, they're required to kind of address those things that can be. And so they've made an effort to address anything that they really could. But other than adding more parking, which would require a variance from the maximum parking pad that is allowed, they've done everything that the UDO allows for to address those comments.
All right, thank you.
Eric, just one question. Is the conservation easement for that entire lot, is that what you said, Lot 10?
Yes, the lot to the south is held in a conservation easement that is managed by the Sycamore Land Trust.
Okay.
Any other board questions? With that, we can go to the public for comments. Do we have anyone online or in chambers tonight who would like to make a comment? And come forward and sign in. And anyone from the public wishing to comment, you have up to 5 minutes to make a comment. When you're ready, state your first and last name.
Good evening. My name's Eric Ost, and I'm the current president of the Elm Heights Neighborhood Association.
Do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. And thank you for this opportunity to provide comment regarding to this petition. As Mr. Grulich mentioned, there was a meeting with the Bryan Park and Elm Heights Neighborhood Associations, and Mr. Sackstetter and Mr. Swinford, Tom Swinford, who's the Land Preservation Director for Sycamore Land Trust, attended, as well as other members of the neighborhood and the neighborhood boards. I think the summary of the comments was fairly accurate, but I want to put some emphasis on a couple things. One is parking. Current UDO requires half a unit of parking half a spot per unit, I believe. I don't know what to say about that. There are going to be 3 bedrooms in each of these units, ostensibly 6 residents plus guests. The parking in that area is already very constrained. It's part of the residential zone 1 parking system. So I think that parking is going to be an issue. The other thing I would like to draw attention to is the conservation easement. And Mr. Grulich, I have a question. So it looks like the lot lines are 9 is on the top and 10 is to the bottom. I believe the plat I saw had 9 on the west and 10 on the east. Has it been replatted?
So if you want to, you can make your comments. And
Okay,
we can
yeah, well,
address
because
all
I
that
didn't
at
know
the
if
end.
that was another step that needed to happen, or in terms of the accuracy of this particular, the materials presented to the board. Regardless, the conservation easement is on the southern half of this lot, and it does have fairly detailed use opportunities, we'll say. And I would like to have the board have some commitment from the developer that they will, I don't know, work with the Sycamore Land Trust, but just something, because I think that that's going to be a concern. Mr. Swinford said this is a very unique parcel. There are very few conservation easements of this nature, so it's going to, I think, require some attention. And I just say that because I want to respect Sarah Clevenger's wishes. Sarah was a long-term board member of Elm Heights, and she and her sister, and well as her father, contributed significantly to this community, so I'd like her intentions to be respected. The structure does meet the requirements, but if you notice, there were no windows on the second floor except for a dormer. I mean, I think there's windows that face Henderson. I'm not sure in terms of the convivial, atmosphere, whether there can be additional windows placed in that, or what there are maybe other requirements in terms of ingress, egress, fire code. This does provide more housing, and our community has an affordability issue with housing. How we achieve greater housing, or as I like to ask the question, how can we create more homes where people live as opposed to more housing where people sleep? And ideally, those homes would be owner occupied as opposed to rental. That's not the question before you as a board, but I think before us as a community, as we move into the discussions regarding UDO revisions, I think that that's a significant point of conversation, as well as the actual need, who needs housing, what the future growth potential for Bloomington is, the local economy. I think we need to look at all those things. So anyway, I really appreciate this opportunity to speak, and I'm not sure if anyone from Bryant Park is going to speak this evening, but hopefully I've relayed their comments accurately. So thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else in chambers wanting to speak? If not, anyone online?
Online that would like to speak, please use the raise hand function or send a message via chat to the host and we can recognize you. I'm not seeing anybody.
Okay. With that, we're back to the petitioner. The petitioner can address any of the comments he's heard to this point using the remainder of your 19 minutes and 30 seconds, but you're under no obligation to do so.
So obviously, if parking was available, we are under our impervious standards. We would have loved to have extended that pad past the 20 by 20, but in the effort to meet the current UDO as it stands, we were limited by that. The current lot lines have been adjusted to reflect, 9 and 10 in their current configuration in order to keep the conservation easement on its own lot so that it can be untouched. Because of the wording of the UDO and how the conservation easement worked, the two lots together was unbuildable if the conservation easement ran on both lots, on the southern half of both lots, because of the sidewalk requirements. I'm happy to surrender the rest of my time.
Very good. With that, we'll come back to the board for action. We will entertain either a motion or further questions to the staff or the petitioner before a motion is made. Do I have any questions or comments?
I'll go ahead and make a motion. Move to adopt the proposed findings and approve CU-24-25 with the following conditions as listed in the packet.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the board? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Call the roll. A vote yes would be to approve the petition, and a vote of no would be to deny.
Throckmorton,
Yes.
Ballard,
Yes.
Burrell,
Yes.
Fernandez. Yes. Shade.
Yes.
Congratulations. The petition passes. And we're going to then pick up at the start that we originally had, which is V-11-25. Again, that will be page 5 of the packet if you're looking at tonight's packet. Give us all a second to get there. You guys all good? All right. Staff report, please, when you're ready.
Thank you. Again, Eric Grulich, Development Services Manager. So this petition, V-11-25, is a petition from Smith and Hayes Properties, LLC, for a site at 300 West 6th Street. The petitioner is requesting a variance from use-specific standards to allow for ground floor dwelling units within the first 20 feet of the first floor within the mixed-use downtown, within the downtown core overlay. So the board previously heard this petition about 2 years ago, August 24th, 2023, for the similar request, and it was denied. The petitioner came back in March of this year, or I'm sorry, April of this year, with a slightly revised plan that incorporated a 1.5 foot wall, 1.5 foot deep wall within the building to separate the ground floor residences, to slightly change this petition from what was heard in 2023. So the petitioner is requesting, in essence, the same variance, but with a slight difference. The board, as I mentioned previously, heard this and continued it in order to give the petitioner time to make some changes to the petition. The petitioner has secured a letter of intent to display art within here, within that dead space or that void space between the inner proposed residences and the eastern facade along Morton Street. But in essence, the petition remains the same as previously heard. So real quick, though, I'll just kind of summarize the overall site and petition. So this is located at the northwest corner of West 6th Street in North Morton. It has been developed with a ground floor commercial component. It has a dentist office. There are some apartments within the building on the upper floor and within the building itself. The other apartments within the building were added a few years ago and met all of the setback requirements, the 20-foot setback, as well as they were still able to achieve the 50% ground floor commercial space. So the petitioner's proposal is to create 2 new dwelling units within the building. And so this petition would, as I mentioned, incorporate a space along Morton Street in front of the residences. They'd be about 1.5 foot deep, that would have artwork displayed in there. So the petitioner has submitted a few renderings kind of what the front might look like with that space in there. And within the packet I mentioned there is a letter of intent that would have a commitment for the incorporation of the art within that space. But one of the challenges, and this is something that we talked about at great length last time, is the UDO, obviously for development standards variance. You know, we have to make findings that there is some peculiar condition that is with a property that presents a practical difficulty, that presents a hardship, that is unique. Something that is not created by the petitioner, something that is inherent about the property itself. And so that is where the board and the department struggled last time. You know, as I mentioned, there are spaces within the building where residences can be added and have been added. The space where these proposed residences did previously have commercial space in there. It was used as a commercial space. The space where the proposed residences was being remodeled for the residences without a permit. And so that created the challenges that we're dealing with today. Is this space was already set aside for the residences, wasn't made available to the commercial space, but as that commercial space has already been leased, you know, this space for these residences is already there. It's existed, it's been walled off, and so the petitioner is trying to come up with a use for that, but that is kind of a self-imposed hardship. That's a self-imposed difficulty that was placed that wasn't inherent about the property. And so that is the challenge, and one of the findings that we were not able to make positive findings for. So in regards to the three criteria, that the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare. We don't certainly find any negative impacts from that. The granting of the variance would not relieve any safety standards or requirements for that. However, in relation to the use and value adjacent to the property, we did make negative findings here. One of the reasons why we don't want ground floor units directly on sidewalks is it does not provide pedestrian experiences along streets that we desire within the community. So this is not about the viability of commercial space. The petition site meets the 50%, so we're not discussing whether or not this space can have a commercial use or is viable in that regard. So we did not find we did find that there would be negative impacts on the use and value, as there would be impacts along the street and to the community as a whole. And then most importantly, that the strict application of the terms of the UDO will result in practical difficulties of use of the property. We did not, as I mentioned, did not find that there were any practical difficulties that were peculiar to this property in question. As I mentioned, the space can have commercial uses in it. It has always had historical commercial spaces in it. There are places within the building that residences can be added and have been added. So we do not find that there are any practical difficulties that are peculiar to the property that is able to justify and recommend approval of the variance. So with that, we are recommending that the board adopt the proposed findings and deny case V-11-25. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. It's time for the petitioner. We have 20 minutes, and I'll ask before we get started, will there be only one person speaking or a number? If there will be a number, can we please get you all sworn in now so we can get that over with? Have all four of you please come forward and sign in. I'll swear you in, then we'll start your clock. And we'll go down the line when she's done there, and each one of you will say your first and last name.
Bill Beggs.
Doug Bruce. David Hayes.
Krista Huttenlocker.
And do each of you affirm that the testimony you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Once you're ready there, we'll start the clock when you're ready, sir. Thank you.
Well, thank you, members of the Board of Zoning Appeals. We hope that we have brought answers to the questions that were raised at the last hearing on this particular petition in March. I want to make sure, we disagree a little bit. The petition that's being brought forward is almost identical to directly across the street at the Stride Center, where there is window, space, and then a wall between it. The difference being, of course, these would be residential units, not a commercial use, but the concept is the same thing, as is directly across the street from us. We have tried to address the planning staff's concern for the pedestrian experience within the confines of the conditions that this particular property imposes on us. It's a community gem. This property's been here for a long time and been well loved, but it carries with it several problems that are imposed by the 20-foot front facade requirement of the UDO. And so I want to remind the board of the peculiarities that we talked about when we were before you before. One, of course, is the fact it's a historic building. There's only one entrance on that Morton Street side, and we can't make another one. So to deny this and to stand firm on there being a commercial use in that site, or in that space rather, would be to require that the locked courtyard gated residential entrance to this same space be abandoned, and that those people that have rented units in there in a locked gated residential space be told they don't have that anymore because we have to have a commercial use in that space. And so we think that's a peculiarity to this site. We can't cut a new front door in that front space. It's a historic building. It's the only one in the Morton Street block, and so for that reason, we think it also poses a peculiarity. The north door, as I said, if required, if denied, and we were to stand firm on the UDO's 20-foot facade requirement, that north door and locked gate requirement for tenants would have to be ignored and eliminated. The entry to the building itself now and for years and years was always that southeast corner, not the east, not the south, and so we don't get the benefit of that. It's a southeast, and that's where the dentist office enters its space right now. The other one we talked about before is the utilities to this building are located, and they serve the building from the west side or the Beeline Trail side of the building, and so to hold firm to the 20-foot front facade requirement would then be to say that we think we should bring the entrance to the residential spaces in through the utility service rather than through the open space that you saw the picture of. Another one is foot traffic. We talked last time about, and I think somebody asked if we'd update foot traffic numbers. Ms. Huttenlocher will talk to you about updated. But the foot traffic in this particular location, due to a somewhat more narrow sidewalk, especially when one considers the placement of parking meters, really you have overwhelmingly higher numbers of foot traffic and therefore pedestrian experience back on the Beeline side as opposed to on the Morton side that the front facade requirement would attempt to preserve. And so the foot traffic and the pedestrian experience, we think, is a peculiarity that leans in favor of or leads to the conclusion that the variance should be granted. Mr. Hayes is here, owner of the building, and he's going to talk about, one thing we want to make sure we talk to you about because it was addressed at the last meeting, was arts. We have a very enthusiastic agreement that David will talk to you about with Pillars, Bloomington Area Arts Guild, former name, and we've got a letter of intent that's in your packet, and they are most anxious to be able to display local artists' work, and that's what it will be, within those windows that are affected. Ms. Huttenlocher will talk to you about her updated numbers with respect to foot traffic, and also she's got a couple of pictures here because there was a concern last time about whether the apartments are too dark inside for tenants, and she's going to talk to you about that, and especially with respect to traveling nurses, with EMTs, with firefighters, with people who have night shift jobs and want there to be less natural light than others. And Mr. Bruce is here to talk to you. I don't think we did a great job last time of talking to you about the transom windows that were always intended to be in these places. And you've got an image in your packet, and Mr. Bruce will talk to you about those transoms. So with that, Mr. Hayes will address you next.
All right, I'll be brief. David Hayes, great-grandson of Jim Hayes, the founder of Hayes Market, so proud owner of that building. You mentioned the artwork, the Pillar Arts, it's actually the Arts Alliance of the Greater Bloomington, Inc. As you mentioned, they're fired up and enthusiastic and excited about displaying art from local artists on Morton at zero cost, because the letter of intent, even though we're renting the space, we're charging them zero. And they're going to take the art off and on at their discretion. Of course, I have final say with the type of art that goes in, mainly for personal character reasons. We don't want something that's obscene up there, of course. So we're excited about that. So we think it's a win for the artists. We think it's a win for the community. And we think it's a win for us, obviously, as well, to be part of that. And then also, I wanted to mention something about the commercial space. We tried for 3 years to convince people that that was a viable commercial space. But the entry into the gated community, into another fob door, down a hallway where 2 young girls lived, to enter a space with just made 0 sense, right? So I know we have our motto, we treat your kids like they're our own, locally owned and operated, landlord. And we mean it. So I want it to be secure. I want it to be safe. I want we have cameras everywhere, 24 hours a day. So that's all I have to say because we're on the clock and I didn't understand how that worked last time. And I ate it all up. So Krista Huttenlocher's next.
Hi, Krista Huttenlocher. I brought new numbers for the traffic flow on the Beeline Trail. The last time, they were more winter hours, and we were a 3-to-1 ratio. This time, I've watched several more hours of footage, both Morton side and the Beeline. For example, our Beeline usage to the Morton Street, 122 people on the Beeline Trail, 19 on the Morton side. Then I took a different day, different set of hours, paid attention to the weather, then made sure it was decent. I've got 139 people on the Beeline Trail, 21 on the Morton side. Then also we have a couple photographs I just wanted to point out. This is the unit directly across from the proposed units, and then the unit directly above it. I have one window in Unit 204. It's one of my more popular units. And I have 2 windows in Unit 103, and it stays rented as well. There are more windows in these new units than these other 2 units that are occupied currently by a nighttime probation officer and an EMT that works night shifts. They both prefer these units that have windows or no windows in the bedrooms. I think that was it.
Hi, good evening. Doug Bruce, the architect for this project and David's vision. Just a couple of things. We have a rendering here, and I think it's in your packet as well. So these transom windows, when we created this wall so that we could still have the privacy for the units, what we're trying to show is that these aren't dark dungeons that was brought up at the last hearing. The south unit is a 1-bedroom unit, and there are 4 of these windows that start at 8 feet high from the floor, and they're 18 inches in height, and they're like 38 or 40 inches in width. That unit has 4 of them along Morton, and then the north unit, which is a 1-bedroom unit, or is it the studio unit, has 2 of them along Morton. Again, the tops of them are at 8 feet, the bottoms of them are 18 inches lower. And so they're still just above. They're not something that you're going to just peer in and look. You'd have to really stand up on your toes. The north unit also has a window looking into the courtyard that's a full-size window. So really, it's the rendering really shows you what the south unit, the 1-bedroom unit, is like with the light coming in. Yet you have the sense of privacy. And so, again, I think as Bill spoke, because of the utilities on one side and because of the narrowness of the sidewalk along Morton, and I think the pedestrian traffic counts show that most people at this block, this peculiar block, are taking the Beeline and not walking along Morton. There's no curb there either, which is different than most areas in downtown. So the cars and the bumpers pull right up to the meters. And then, as Mr. Beggs mentioned also, something else that's very peculiar here to this site is that the south part of this site, the corner entry, the sidewalk there is over 20 feet wide from 6th Street. So that is how this is not a new building. This is a building that has been here for ages. And so as the UDO has changed, this building has not. And that's what we think is very peculiar about this site. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other comments, or we'll withhold the rest, 9:25? Okay, 9 minutes and 25 seconds will be remaining. With that, we'll come to the board with any questions for the petitioner or for the board, please.
Excuse me, I wasn't sure if I heard Mr. Begg's comment correctly regarding access to the space. If I heard you right, you were saying that if this was a commercial space, the only entrance would be off of the courtyard? Why couldn't the existing door on Morton Street be used as access to a commercial site?
Good question, because that is that's a dedicated stairway that doesn't, there's not room in there. It's a stairway that's already existing.
But if I understand the rendering, it looks like there is a door from the bedroom into that area.
Into which area, please?
Inside that door, there's
Into
another
the
door.
vestibule where that.
It's a code compliant, it's not a use door, it's not an in and out door every day. It's a code compliant partial door, I think there's a better term for that an architect would use, but it's not a full entrance door like the one you see in that picture there.
I think the question that I was hearing was, it could be used as one, though.
Except there's not space for it. There's only space for what we've
If the
proposed.
interior was designed as a commercial space, it could be used, correct?
I don't think, no, because it's not wide enough from a code perspective. There's not room to get a wide enough door inside there as a typical, for example, ADA. You couldn't get a wheelchair in there.
Any other questions?
I disagree. I mean, there is room for a 3-0 door, 3 feet door there, if you move it. I mean, if you place it correctly and get rid of that, the art wall, if you call it, to enter from that door. My question, though, is this place, has this already been built as a residential space, and is it already currently rented?
The answer is no and no. Answers are no and no. Last time you heard the start of a story, probably too much of one. The contractor that had been hired didn't follow the rules. The owner didn't realize it. He started out, when the owner figured out what was going on, he stopped that contractor who is not in business now. And in fact, these last 3 years have involved many dollars trying to recover what that contractor did to put him in the position he's in right now to have to be here to ask you for this variance. So no and no is a short answer.
So the space have not been developed?
Space is not developed. It was that builder started on it, and we didn't know it. And then when we found out, and maybe there was the city saw it, but it stopped when the owner figured that out, and he then tried to recover his losses from that and was unable to.
Thank you.
To the tune of, as of now, several $100,000.
Jackie Scanlon, Assistant Director. Our understanding is, I mean, it was all open inside, and work started illegally. It was noticed by the city. Stop work order, I think, was issued. I'm not positive. And some work has been done on this residential portion, and they chose to continue work on the commercial side where the dentist office is. So that was all done. The choices made about which side was residential and which side was commercial has been made and committed to by putting the dentist office in before this discussion was completed. So you can see in the windows, it's not complete, but work has been done in those on that side.
I mean, the comment about that it was chosen, the fact is we can't lease it. We've spent, next Tuesday will be 3 years and a month trying to get the place leased for a commercial use. Yes, that builder did start on a residential use on that thing. When we figured it out, we stopped it. When we became aware of it, we stopped it. But it hasn't been a situation as if somebody has made a decision to try to put apartments in there without, that's what we're doing here tonight, is we're seeking a variance that once the builder had been stopped. But we'll be now, as I say, next Tuesday, it'll be 3 years and a month of trying to lease that space for commercial uses without success.
Any other questions from the board? I only had one question concerning the count. It's just a general question, which is, would it be reasonable to think or to surmise that if there was a retail or commercial use of that space on Morton, that those numbers would be different along Morton as people came in to a leased space?
In my opinion, no, because most of my kids will come through this back door or the back gate on
So I'm talking about if it was rented as a commercial space, not as a residential space. would the numbers passing by on the sidewalk on Morton, would it be conceivable to say that there would be more than the 19 that you counted or the 21 that you counted?
I would say, Joe, that it would depend on the type of business that was in there. If it was a hairstylist, probably not. You know, if it was a tattoo parlor, probably not. I don't know. But if it was a, you know, some establishment with a lot of traffic, then sure, it would increase the foot
And the
count.
point I'm trying to make is, right now, there is no retail or commercial space being used there. And if you did put commercial or retail space in, those numbers will be different. No one's going to put something in, no one shows up.
Yeah.
So
Most of the
my point is that it's nice that you have those numbers now, but those numbers are skewed to the fact that you don't have retail there. So I appreciate you bringing us the numbers, but for me, that's not a very compelling argument because we don't know how many people would be on Morton. So
Yeah.
therefore, that sidewalk could be used much more. That's my only point,
Yeah, I
is it
understand.
reasonable to be able to make that kind of a conclusion?
And maybe I hear that now, that you raise it that way. Maybe it'll help to say this. What we were led to understand is that the pedestrian experience is a particular concern of the staff. And so those numbers are meant to show the board traffic in the entire street, not just to this building. So that's the point. Your point is well taken, I get it, but it doesn't change the numbers as to areas, destinations north and destinations south of this particular site.
In the current configuration, correct.
Correct.
Do we have any other questions?
Just a quick one. 3 years is obviously a long time. What's been the feedback as to why?
We have, Tim, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different ones. Convenience store denied space with there was no too small a space for entry, lack of free parking, no quick in and out. A beautician denied no washer and dryer, parking for clients. A bakery, lack of street frontage. I mean, there's been lots of attempts. Let's see, we spoke to the Chamber of Commerce in '22. We actually had them as a tenant at 6th and Rogers. They're looking for additional office space. Again, they didn't they didn't have any parking and also the cost. We tried to offer it to the dental practice to expand, no interest there. We talked about even moving one of my offices down there, and I just don't have any use for that kind of isolation, moving a person down there when my office is down off of, down off of South College, out past First Street. So, but the mix of the residential and that commercial in that area just doesn't work for people. So anyway, hope that helps.
Yeah.
And just one more point to that. What he told you about was not including the listing period with Chris Cockrum while it was listed, and that feedback went directly to him that also was unsuccessful during the same period.
So just to follow up to this, so what are your options if this is not granted? What are you guys going to do with the space? I mean, obviously, you've probably had to weigh that.
I mean, and again, I know it shouldn't be about money, but it's like 3 years, like $108,000 of lost rent. So the answer is nothing. We won't be able to do anything. We'll just have to wait and see if someday, somehow, a UDO a new one gets put on that eliminates that, which, could be in my lifetime, may not be. So, but, I want to protect. I didn't ask for any variances when we did that project. I was promised a 10-year tax abatement that didn't happen because of the time frame I was doing it during COVID. Mayor Hamilton and them said, hey, I didn't ask for anything. So I've never asked for anything on this building. And I did not want to change the integrity of that building at all. But we're just going to have to leave it as it is.
All right, thank you.
Would you object to sharing with us whether you're trying to rent it at market rate, or is it higher, or have you heard any feedback in those terms for that space? Yeah.
I have a waiting list right now for our one-bedroom units, and those.
I'm sorry, I'm talking about commercial, the commercial
Oh,
space.
commercial.
Sorry.
Yeah, we've offered, I mean, if someone would come in 6 months free just to get it going, I mean, retail space downtown should at least be $12 a square foot minimally. We were offering it like, just give us an offer, just tell us what you can afford. The chamber were really close, but they went through some budgetary things and did some staff, I think, reductions possibly, and they were fine with the space they had. I suppose if I gave it away free, someone, but then that's never been proposed, but yeah, so.
Thank you. Any other questions before we go to the public? Okay, we'll open it up to the public then. Anyone from the public here in Chambers who'd like to speak to this petition? Seeing none, do we have anyone online? Eric?
If there is anybody online, please use the raise hand function or send a message via chat to the host and we can recognize you. I'm not seeing anything.
Okay. We'll go back to the petitioner. You guys have, I think it's 9 minutes and a half roughly, is that correct? Go ahead and put the clock back up for them, and you can use the remainder of your time to address.
Yeah, and I don't want to talk just to be talking or just to use the time, so I don't plan that. But I just do want to call the board's attention to, within the packet, we have provided, we had done this at the last hearing, and I don't think it was clear exactly what you were given, but in your packet, you have been furnished an alternate set of proposed findings with a proposed condition as well. We gave you that letter of intent with pillars as well, and we showed you this time there was a concern about what's it going to look like inside. I guess that's probably a peculiarity of the site, and so we tried to give you that to show you that as well. And so from our perspective, this record is full of hardships relating to peculiarities or deriving from peculiarities with this property, and so we would respectfully request that the board grant this variance pursuant to the proposed findings that we've submitted.
Yeah, we're back to the board for any questions or a motion, either. Go ahead, John.
I have a question for staff. If I recall, I know it was a couple months ago when we first started this. I guess it was March. And at that time, at the beginning of the meeting, or the hearing, there was a discussion about whether or not this was really eligible to be considered under our code because not a sufficient amount of time had passed and that the project was not significantly different than the prior consideration that was denied.
Yeah, so there was actually different language. There was language in the UDO that said something to that effect, but the rules and procedures do allow for something to come back, and you don't have to prove a substantial change or anything. The board did not have to make that there were any substantial changes to the petition or the property in order to hear it, so you are allowed to hear it. So I just want to remind the board, this petition is not about a request from the amount of commercial space that is required. This space doesn't have to be commercial. It could be uses for the tenant. It can be anything. So, as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, this is not about, the viability of the space, but that what is unique here that doesn't allow the residences to be within the building. When we approved the remodeling permit for the dentist's office, this space was walled off. This was not shown as available to, the dentist use that was moving in there. So it had already been separated at that time. And again, as I mentioned, that was something that was created by the petitioner. Whether they knew the contractor was doing the work or not, that's not the issue. It was an action of the property owner, or the property owner allowed that to happen. And so that's a self-imposed hardship. That's something that they created.
So before we get to, and we haven't had a motion yet, but we are to the board for that. we could entertain a motion. But I will say that I think what's, again, difficult with this is that, again, we would be forced to come up with alternate findings since we would be going against the city's recommendations, and those alternate findings have to be within what we're allowed to do. And I think what I was just hearing Eric say is that, yes, it can be used for residential purposes, but it does still have to maintain the code, which is the setback, which is kind of a big issue there, and that's where you're, if I understand, Eric, that's kind of where you're making that decision.
Well, what I was trying to say is, it could be amenity space, it could be a study space, it could be used by it can't be a residential
Can't be a
unit.
residential space, right, and because
It
of
can't
the
be a
setback.
unit, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I think that that's what makes it hard because, and this would be addressed to the petitioners and the public in general, which is, we can't just violate the UDO without some rationale. We have to have that rationale, and that's what makes it frustrating. Because if the board finds to deny this, it would be because we can't find a rationale for being able to overturn what's clearly stated in the UDO. If we are able to come up with findings of fact that would allow us to go against the UDO, that would be what's critical. You guys have been in front of us, this is the third time, I think. So you know what our particular challenge is, which is we were looking to you to give us something a little more in terms of, and you did give us those suggested proposed findings. And if the board is not swayed and think that those are sufficient enough, that would be our problem of not feeling like that we can go against the code. So I'm just saying that in general because it's a difficult thing for this particular building, and we understand the situation. So I wanted to say that now before we had any further motion. And I think oftentimes people come to the BZA and they think that we're not being thoughtful or considerate or understand the challenges, and we do. But at the same time, we're not a renegade board. So we do have certain things that we have to follow. So bear with us as we try to figure out what's the best way to go here, please. Any questions or comments from the board?
Just
Sorry, I have a question for staff. So this space could be a workout place?
Yeah, it could be literally any use other than a dwelling unit.
Correct. So a workout place, they could provide a workout place and charge people to use it.
Sure. It could be a laundry area, it could be a study space, it could be exercise room, it could be any number of things.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, that was,
You had a question?
yeah, basically my question as well is to the petitioner. There are options. I understand what you're saying, but obviously you could up your rents to put amenities in there that other groups that rent downtown do. I agree with Joe, though. It's an unfortunate place. It's part of it being self-imposed, but part of it being, I feel like the consideration of, I do think you make some valid points on the peculiarities. And I also think now that we can interpret the financial impact and as part of our findings, I think the city planning needs to hear that. Like 3 years, we don't want any local business sitting with that, any kind of vacancy for that long of time trying to go through this process. So, yeah, I think there are options. I think it's very limited, and I think that's unfortunate. But I think this is maybe a broader conversation about UDO changes that would allow for first floor residential, and I think that may be happening down the road, but it's not there now. So that's all I've got.
Any other questions from the board or comments from the board before we entertain a motion? Ryan, anything? I appreciate what Tim just said because that's kind of the issue here, but I do think that we have come up to the line of how can this become usable within code currently. And I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Krista? Krista said there's a waiting list, so there's clearly a demand for that location. And the space the renderings are beautiful. So I do agree that there might be a way to adapt it within code at the time being until such time as the UDO changes, that you would be able to at least regain some of your investment. Because it's true now, we do take into account a little bit more of what kind of damage it could do to you economically. Any other questions?
I'll get the ball rolling. I'll get and just recommend that the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the proposed findings and deny V 1125.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion before we take a vote? The vote would be, yes would be to deny, a yes would be to deny, a no would be to vote down the motion and come up with another motion. With that, I'll call the question.
Ballard,
Yes.
Burrell,
Yes.
Fernandez. Yes. Shade,
Yes.
Throckmorton.
Yes. Unfortunately, the motion has been denied. We do thank you for your continued work on this, and good luck in working with the city. Okay, we've been at 1 hour. Does anyone need a quick break? Otherwise, we'll go to the next one. We good? Okay, moving on to the next one. We are up for V-19-25, Lance and Gretchen Widener, 1215 North Woodburn Avenue. May I have the staff report, please?
Yes. Let me just set up my screen.
That's at page 30 of the packet for those following along.
Yes, David Brentez, a zoning planner and GIS analyst. This is petition V-19-25. At 1215 North Woodburn Avenue, petitioners Lance and Gretchen Widener are requesting a variance from front parking setback requirements and a request for a determinate sidewalk variance to allow for construction of a new duplex in the mixed-use medium-scale district. The surrounding properties are also in the mixed-use medium-scale district, shown here in red, and residential multifamily shown in yellow. The parcel is 150 feet by 32, I'm sorry, it's 50 feet by 132 feet. There is currently a one-story, a single-family home. The petitioner plans to replace this structure with a two-story duplex as allowed in this zoning district by right. The proposal includes a 27-foot by 32-foot parking area to be accessed by the alley to the west. The dimensional standards of the mixed-use medium-scale district call for the parking area to be located 20 feet behind the front building wall of both North Woodburn and West Kenwood. The proposed structure does adhere to both the 15-foot front setback on each of those frontages and the remaining area that they would be allowed under current code to dedicate to a parking area is highlighted in red. It's a little faint, but that area is not wide enough for a single parking space. The petitioner's proposal would also require a 5-foot wide tree plot and 6-foot wide sidewalk along the frontage with West Kenwood. There's not currently a sidewalk along that stretch of Kenwood. This is the property with Woodburn to the left and West Kenwood to the right. And this is Kenwood facing westbound. I'm sorry. And this is the other side of Kenwood. It is only 1 block long and it's less than 500 feet. In regards to criteria, the parking is not expected to be injurious to the welfare of the community. The parking area is accessed from the alley, which is similar to other properties in the area and required by the UDO in this case. The sidewalk, the determinate sidewalk variance is also not expected to be injurious to the general welfare of the community, and that there is unlikely to be any adverse impact to bike and pedestrian traffic through that area. As I said, Kenwood is 1 block and only 13 feet wide. This area serves mostly just the residents. It's not a very highly trafficked area. Neither variance is expected to impact the value of the adjacent areas, of the adjacent properties in a substantially adverse manner. It should have very little impact, and the new structure would comply with setbacks that the existing structure does not comply with. So that would be a benefit to the area to come into compliance there. The proposed structure and facilities would be very similar to other surrounding properties. The parking, the strict application in terms of the UDO would result in practical difficulties in that it would not allow for any surface parking on the property if the front building setback and front parking setback were followed on both frontages. This proposal requests that only the front parking setback on the front parking area setback on Kenwood be relieved. And in regards to the sidewalk, the strict application of the UDO would result in practical difficulties that require the installation of a sidewalk on a corridor that has very little pedestrian or vehicular traffic. The transportation plan states that neighborhood residential streets with expected average daily trips of less than 500 vehicles per day are expected to have an operational speed of less than 20 miles per hour, and that a lack of sidewalks can be appropriate in this case. Peculiar condition is found in the narrow width of Kenwood Drive, which creates a very narrow street and low traffic speed and volume that make a shared street design more appropriate. And there are criteria for determinate sidewalk variances, which are included here. We do not have findings for this criteria, but it can be included for the board's consideration. So our staff recommendation, based on the written findings, is that the department recommends the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the proposed findings for V1925 and approve the requested variances with the following conditions: that a building permit is required before construction, a zoning commitment is required for the determinate sidewalk variance prior to the issuance of a building permit, and that required street trees will be put in on each frontage. That concludes my presentation. Let me know if you have any questions.
Petitioner, do we have the petitioner here who'd like to speak to this? And is there only you, or are there multiple? Is it just you?
Just me in terms of speaking, yep.
Okay, thank you. Once you sign in, say your first and last name, please.
Matt Ellenwood with Matt Black Architecture.
Do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do, thank you.
You have 20 minutes. You can hold some in reserve till later.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm actually here with the owner, Lance Widener, but I'm going to just cover a few things. David, do you have any of the other additional drawings? Thanks. Yeah, David did a nice job kind of overviewing the property and the condition. It's kind of an interesting lot with other development that's happened around it, and kind of just want to continue with that and do something that fits within that context. And so I just thought we'd show a little bit of a little more of what's around it and then what we're proposing, so you can get a better vision for it rather than just that kind of basic site plan. So thanks, David. You could start with the first one, actually, across the street, just for context. Oh, that is, okay. So this is just an elevation of the north side, which is along Kenwood, and then the east side would be Woodburn. So you can get a feel for the proposed duplex unit. And then to the next slides. Just basic floor plans. They're similar units, front and back. They're 4-bedroom units, 3 bedrooms up, 1 bedroom down. Go ahead to the upstairs. Yeah, and then, yeah, to the next, thanks. So this is the existing context. To the right there, kind of beyond the tree, is the existing structure where the new proposed would go. So you can see here there are existing two-story kind of structures there along the street already. And then if you continue the next. Now this is on the off of the alley, kind of opposite from the view we're just looking at, or kind of to the west. Our property is to kind of in the middle of the picture there, that existing structure to the left of the basketball goal. Just to kind of show you that, you know, there's obviously an existing parking demand off of the alley here. I'm not sure if it's just for the one property. But we would be proposing a similar parking scenario to the left of this, where that tree is. And then there's the Kenwood to the left of that, so. Thanks. Now this is across Kenwood, a recent development. Also a duplex unit with parking in the rear off of the alley. They have a larger parking area than we're proposing. They've kind of gone past, you know, the face of the building along Kenwood there. So we're proposing to stay, you know, keep our parking in line with the face of the building along Kenwood, so it wouldn't, you know, come out as far toward the street. So, and then I think there's, yeah, and then this is that same structure, more at the intersection, closer to Woodburn. So Woodburn would be to your right of the image, and Kenwood on the left. So this is a similar, you know, type scale to what we're proposing on our development. Really, the main difference is the parking scenario in the back of our property. I want to keep it in line with the structure. So that's mainly it, just to get a sense of what we're proposing. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer those. Thanks.
Thank you. What's the time they have left?
16:30.
Okay, we'll hold the 16:30 for later. Do we have questions from the board to the staff or the petitioner, please?
I just have one quick question. I may have missed it. Is this are you going to sell these duplexes or rent them?
Sorry, yeah, there would be rentals. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
Sorry.
Yeah, please.
I do have one question. This is for staff. The condition number 2, is that, what's the purpose of that? The zoning commitment. What is the zoning commitment?
Yeah, so the zoning commitment is a standard condition that we have for all determinate sidewalk variances. So the purpose of that is to let future owners of the property know that this determinate sidewalk variance is on record, and helps, you know, alleviate any challenge, hopefully try to make those a little bit easier should we have to call it in at some time in the future.
Yeah, I just can't imagine a future property owner coming in and demanding that they build a sidewalk. But
Sure, no, I mean, it helps them be aware that this is there.
I got you. Yeah.
This is for the staff. On page, I think it's 39, page 39 of the packet, on that overhead, where you have the overlay. Are you able to put that up? Page 39 of the packet. I just want to speak to the parking setback and not the sidewalk. Yeah, this one. Can you make it larger? I want to make sure I understand. So currently, the existing structure, that's the front there on the right side, is it within the setback standard, the existing?
So that existing structure does not meet current building setbacks, which would be 15 feet from the property line on both.
Right, so I'm
Kenwood
looking
and
at the
Woodburn.
15-foot mark, which is into that little roof line a little bit, correct?
That's correct.
So that new building could go forward to that 15-foot line, right? Is it 15 to 25, or does it have to be where it's currently sitting?
So where the property,
Where does the proposed building need to go exactly where it is, or can it go forward?
it cannot go forward. It can't go towards Woodburn any more than it already is. It is a minimum.
Yeah, I just want to know about the Kenwood Drive, towards Kenwood Drive. It can't go any More
It-
towards.
it may
That
be
was my
inches.
question. I just want to make
Yeah.
sure I'm reading it right. That's as close as it can get to the street there.
It is as close as it can get to both streets where it's designed.
Understood. Thank you. Any other questions? All right, we'll go to the public. Anyone wanting to make comment? Is there anyone in the chambers who'd like to speak to this petition? Seeing none, is there anyone online?
If there's anybody online that would like to speak to this petition, please use the raise hand function or send a message via chat to the host and we can recognize you. I am not seeing anyone from my end.
Okay, with that, any final comments from the petitioner? You have 16, was it 16 minutes?
16:30.
Yeah, no further comments, thanks.
All right, thank you. Back to the board, either take a motion or any further questions for the staff or the petitioner? John?
I will move that the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the proposed findings for V 1925/ZR 2025-050072 and approve the requested variances with the following conditions. 1, a building permit is required prior to construction. 2, a zoning commitment for determined sidewalk variance be recorded prior to issuance of the building permit. And 3, street trees not more than 30 inches or 30 feet on center are required along both frontages.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the board? Seeing none, I call the question. A vote of yes would be to approve the request. A no would be to deny.
Burrell? Yes. Fernandez?
Yes.
Shadday?
Yes.
Throckmorton?
Yes.
Ballard?
Yes.
Unanimous approval on that. Congratulations. Thank you for your time. Good luck.
Thank you for your investment.
And we'll jump down to page 41 of the packet. And that will be case V-20-25. And this is, let me get my thing in front of me.
City of Bloomington.
Is it City of Bloomington Parks and Recreation Department, 1510 South Strong Drive? Can I have a staff report, please?
Yes, so this is a request for the City of Bloomington Parks and Recreation Department for a variance from the environmental standards of Section 20.04.090 in relation to the requirement for the platting of easements to allow for the installation of a multi-use path on a property in a planned unit development. So this particular project is located on a piece of ground owned by the Monroe County Board of Commissioners and has been a long-standing project within the City Parks and Recreation Department to place a multi-use trail through the power line corridor that runs from Rogers significantly to the west. And so the petitioners are coming forward to request a variance from a section of the UDO that requires the platting of easements anytime there's land disturbing activities that have certain environmental features on there. So if the UDO requires if you have creeks or intermittent streams that are subject to the riparian buffer standards that you have to plat or record an easement that protects those areas. If there are properties that have karst features, you have to identify those features and then place an easement across those. If you have a property with closed canopy on there, you have to plat easements that set aside those areas of tree preservation. If you have land disturbing activity on properties that have steep slopes, you have to identify those areas of steep slopes and then place those in easements as well. So the petitioner's proposal to install a path through here does qualify as a land disturbing activity. However, given the size of this property, it's almost 8 acres in size. There's a significant amount of land, environmental resources on here that would have to be surveyed and identified to have those easements platted or recorded to protect those. So the petitioner is requesting a variance from those standards that require the easements to be secured. The proposed project meets all of the environmental standards. It does not encroach into the karst features. It does not disturb the steep slope area. There are no trees that are being taken down as part of this. There is one stream crossing on here, but a stream crossing is an allowed disturbance activity, so it does not violate that. So the petitioner is not requesting relief from any environmental preservation standards. It's just the easements that are required to be secured as part of that activity. And so you can see here kind of an exhibit showing the power line corridor through this area. As I mentioned, this is on the property that is owned by the county. The county has been looking at this property for a very long time for a wide range of uses. So there will be another, most likely, petition coming forward at some time in the near future by the county to develop this property. And so the platting of the easements would best be accomplished with a much larger development proposal here. Requiring the easements to be secured at this time for the tree preservation, could place a lot of the property in that easement that would then encumber or prevent future development and require those easements to be modified at a future time. And so the level of work that would be required for the petitioner's project that doesn't disturb any of those easements doesn't really have a good correlation here. And so this is just a site photo looking west from Rogers Street, so you can see kind of the entry of the path here that would follow the power line corridor through the property. And so the petitioner has been working with Duke and the county for a very long time to kind of accomplish this project here. So with all development standards variances, of course, we do have to make findings for the 3 criteria. We do not find that there will be any injuries to the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare. As I mentioned, all of the environmental standards within the UDO would still be adhered to. This is just requesting relief from the easements. We did not find any negative impact on the use and value adjacent to the property by not requiring the easements. As I mentioned, it was all of the environmental standards in the UDO would still be adhered to. And we do find that the strict application would result in practical difficulties in the use of the property. As I mentioned, it would require a substantial amount of survey work to place these easements within legal descriptions. And as I also mentioned, it could encumber a lot of the property and easements that would be needed for development in the future. And so certainly the delaying of these easements is more appropriate when there's a larger development project that is coming forward for the property as a whole. And so the granting of this variance does not relieve any future entities or development of this property from having to plat those easements. Those would still be required with any future activities. And this variance approval is valid for this project only. So we are recommending that the board adopt the proposed findings and approve this variance with the 2 conditions that are listed in staff's report that I mentioned, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Is there someone from the board and rec here? Come forward, sign in, and state your first and last name after you've signed in.
Hello, Rebecca Swift. I'm the Operations and Development Division Director for Bloomington Parks and Recreation.
Do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You have 20 minutes.
All right, I won't take full 20 minutes. It's pretty short and sweet. We're just looking, as Eric summarized, looking for a variance from having to plat these different environmental easements. We are still going to be upholding all the environmental standards laid out in the UDO, including 25 feet setback from all known karst topography, from all known riparian corridors, and we're also likely going to still include some tree line fence protections anywhere that the construction corridor is within 10 feet of the existing tree line. So it's already a pretty disturbed area. Looking forward to activate it with some wonderful use, and this has been a long project talked about for over 30 years, so really grateful to bring it to the finish line, hopefully.
Thank you. To the board for questions for either the staff or the petitioner.
Just a quick question. Can you pull up, Eric, the picture of the proposed route of the path? And I would just ask the petitioner, first of all, I'm thrilled this is happening. I think this is a wonderful connection. Do you guys know is there be any consideration of like connecting into RCA Park at all?
Yes, there will be
Okay.
connection directly into RCA Community Park and a little offshoot that connects to the Osage Habitat for Humanity build that just was completed.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions at this point?
this is for staff. I just want to understand the easement we're talking about. We're not talking about natural easements, we're talking about environmental easements?
Correct.
Yes, that's correct. So the petitioner has already worked out the language to allow the multi-use path within the Duke easement. So as I mentioned, the UDO says anytime there's land disturbing activity on a property that has any of those regulated environmental features, of which there are a significant amount on this property, you have to do a significant amount of survey work to determine where those features are, and then write up legal descriptions for all of those easements. So that they are just requesting a variance to not require those easements to be secured.
So they already have the easements, the property easements. I'm not talking environmental, but property easements with the, you said they're going through plan unit development?
Yeah, so they've applied for a site development permit now. So we're reviewing that. However, the issuance of that or this activity would require those easements now. So that's why the variance is necessary.
Okay.
Yes, Ryan, please.
Have you heard anything from the neighbors about any concerns about a trail going through the neighborhood?
I have not yet. We did host a public meeting last year to try to engage the neighborhood, and we sent out mailers. We also sent out notices for this appeal meeting and have not heard any response.
John? Oh, you're good? Any other questions at this time? Okay, we'll go to the public then for comments. Does anyone in chambers want to make comments about this petition? Seeing none, anyone online?
If there's anybody online that would like to speak to this petition, please use the raise hand function or send a message via chat to the host and we can recognize you.
Good.
I'm not seeing.
Yep. All right, any final comments from the petitioner based on any of the questions you've heard to this point?
No, thank
Okay,
you.
we'll go back to the board for action, either a motion or further questions or comments.
I move that the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the proposed findings and approve V 2025 with the following conditions. Granting of the variance does not relieve any future land disturbing activities from the requirements of the UDO. And number 2, this approval is valid for this project as proposed only.
Way to go, Ryan. Ryan's up there. He's got his first motion. Thank you. Do I have a second? Second. All right, I have a motion and a second. Any further comments or discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I call the question. A vote of yes would be to approve the request. A vote of no would be to deny.
Hernandez. Yes. Shea.
Yes.
Throckmorton.
Yes.
Ballard.
Yes.
Burrell.
Yes.
And that's a 5-0 approval, unanimous. Thank you. Way to go, Ryan. We're going to take just one moment. We're not going to adjourn. We're just going to pause for a second and reset. All right, she makes her way here. We will continue on with our final petition this evening, V-21-25 Graystar Development Central LLC, the Fell Iron and Metal Inc. And can we please have a staff report?
Certainly. While we pull it up, I'll just say my name is Gabriel Holbrow, zoning planner for the city of Bloomington. Okay. This is a request for 503 North Rogers Street. It's very close to our location here. If you could walk through this wall behind you and keep walking a little bit, you'd pretty much get there. The property contains 5.4 acres. It's located on the west side of Rogers Street between 8th Street and 10th Street. It's immediately south of the Beeline Trail's intersection with Rogers Street. The Beeline Trail runs along the northeast boundary of the property between Rogers and Fairview Street. The property also has frontage on Fairview Street from 9th Street up to the Beeline Trail. A part of that is across from Reverend Ernest D. Butler Park. It also has frontage on 9th Street between Jackson and Fairview, although it doesn't go all the way to the corner of Fairview and 9th. The property is located in the mixed-use downtown zoning district and within the Showers Technology Downtown Character Overlay. In the comprehensive plan, it's designated as a downtown area. The existing land use is a scrap metal yard operating as Bloomington Iron and Metal, or BIM. The petitioner proposes to redevelop the site as a mixed-use multifamily development. This is an overview of the site plan. North is up. The curved edge along the upper right is the Beeline Trail. As you can see, there are a total of 4 buildings. 3 of them are primarily residential, and the 4th is a parking garage, which is on the left middle. The unit.
I'm sorry, just a second. Hey guys, if you're going to talk, please go outside. We'll give them a minute to exit.
Continuing on, so the unit count in the program is still in progress, but the petitioner has stated that they anticipate 370 multifamily units within the proposed buildings. The development also includes 3,000 square feet of commercial and retail space in the building closest to Rogers Street. On this site plan, it's the blue box that you can see kind of there on the right. The development is subject to major site plan review by the Plan Commission, but it must receive several variances before the site plan can be approved. If this looks a little bit familiar, the board heard a variance petition in November 2023 from a company called Buckingham Properties. Buckingham requested 5 variances, including the 4 variances that this petition from Greystar is now requesting. The board did grant all 5 variances for the Buckingham petition, but the previous unfortunately, this petition is not able to utilize that variance because one of the conditions on that one was it's only for the proposed buildings as shown on the submitted site plan. So this is a similar proposal, but it is clearly different from the Buckingham proposal before, so it's coming back to you. Some of the same reasoning comes into play when you think about whether to grant the variances, but we do need to go through the process again, looking at this proposal. 2 aspects of the proposal that I want to highlight are that because of the footprints, at least, the development must qualify as sustainable and must provide on-site affordable housing units or make a payment in lieu to the city's Affordable Housing Development Fund. Additionally, the proposed site plan includes a new multi-use trail that will be open to the public approximately along the south edge of the site, providing a direct pedestrian and bicycle connection to Rogers Street at the Beeline over to Reverend Butler Park. This variance petition, including the petitioner's statement, as well as the submitted site plan, express a commitment to achieve both the affordable housing and sustainable development incentives and to provide a public multi-use trail connection through the site. General compliance with the UDO and with these commitments will be verified by the Plan Commission during the site plan review. So due to unique constraints of the site, the petitioner is requesting 4 variances from standards within the UDO to allow this proposed development. The first is the largest, or the one that is what this is really all about. This is the essence of it. Would be to allow ground floor dwelling units. In the Showers Technology Overlay District, ground floor dwelling units are not allowed. This was put in the code in order to implement the character area's purpose of, quote, to promote mixed-use development focused on light industrial, manufacturing, and office uses, end quote. That would be essential to the mission of the certified technology park that covers the area. The UDO does allow upper floor dwelling units in the character area in recognition that a secondary purpose of the area is to target, quote, live, work, young professional, single-family, empty nester, and retiree housing markets, end quote. So this is, because of the unique constraints of the site and difficulty developing it with the more employment-focused uses that would be part of the trades district, they're proposing to have ground floor dwelling units in all of the buildings. And the petitioner's contention, well, you'll hear from them, is that this does not take away from the purpose and goals of the Certified Technology Park, but can help enhance it by providing a place to live close by. There's also a variance from the front building setback maximum. So in this district, the front setback is a maximum, not a minimum. So it has to be no further than 15 feet from the proposed right-of-way. The details are in the packet. It gets a little complicated because it goes from the proposed right-of-way, which is wider than the existing right-of-way. But in any case, little area highlighted in yellow is showing a setback from the existing right-of-way of 107.5 feet, what would be, which is equivalent to 90.5 feet from the proposed right-of-way. So 90.5 is more than 15, so they're requesting a variance to allow it to be set farther back. So you'll see that the property narrows down as the B line comes into Rogers Street. So the east front property line along Rogers Street is approximately 50 feet in width, of which I guess the dimension isn't called out, but around 20 feet is the proposed entry drive, and 8 feet is the multi-use trail. So those things are already taking up a considerable amount of that frontage. So it is a fact that there's not a lot of room in there to put a building. So the next two variances I'm going to treat together right now because they both have to do with the facade design. The first is that the Showers Technology character area requires an upper floor step back above the second story. So the first two stories need to be within that 15 feet maximum setback. And then above the second story, the code requires the facade of the building to step back at least 15 feet, and then any higher floors up to the maximum allowed are at least that far back. That's what the requirement is. What they're proposing are step backs above the fourth story. So here's an example. This is building A along Fairview Street, which it's the west facade of building A. So imagine we're standing in Butler Park looking across Fairview Street at this building here. And you can see the first 3 stories they have that brick facade, and then the facade material changes, so there's a visual change above the third story, but it's still in line. It's still that same vertical location. And then it steps back behind that. You can see in this rendering, you can see a little bit of that step back floor. I mean, this helps illustrate that because one of the purposes of the step back is it's hard to see that 5th story up there behind the step back. So it does provide a step back. The depth depends on, there's 3 facade modules, which you can see from left, middle, and right. The left and right are at that 15 feet or less as required by the UDO, and then the middle one is recessed, also is required by the UDO for facade modulation. So the depth of the step back on the 5th story is more than 15 feet. It looks like it's 18 feet for the 2 facade modules on the ends. It's a little less than 15 feet. It's 11 feet for the facade module in the middle. So the building A requires a variance from the step back because the step back height is above the 4th story instead of above the 2nd story, and because the step back depth for the recessed facade module in the middle is less than 15 feet. So the other part of the other variance is to have 20% of the ground floor facade be windows and doors. So in the Showers Technology District, the first floor facing the street, the requirement is for it to be 40% windows or doors. So that goes along with not allowing ground floor dwelling units. The assumption is that there be some kind of non-residential use there, whether it's office or retail or what have you, and that 40% glazing or doors and windows would be appropriate for that kind of use and help interact with the streetscape. So that's why that standard is in there. But going along with requesting to have ground floor dwelling units, they're requesting to have windows that are better, more appropriate for dwelling uses. So the upper floors, the requirement is only 20%, acknowledging that there might be dwelling units up there. So they're simply proposing to have that same 20% amount on the ground floor. So they're requesting a variance for that. So as you can see on the Fairview frontage, the percentage of windows and doors is similar on all the floors. So the first floor needs a variance to be less than 40% facing the street. So from Rogers Street, this is building B. You can see that retail portion. I assume that when a tenant moves in there, it'll have a catchier name than just retail, but it gives you an idea. See that sign there. And there is a step back because that retail portion is 1 story and it steps back. Behind that, the step back depth is well more than 15 feet. And you can actually see farther back that above the 4th story, there's a much farther step back as well. So this one actually also needs a variance from the step back requirement because the step back happens after the 1st story, not after the 2nd story. So we don't have it going up 2 stories and then going back. One of the criteria we'll get to that you think about with a variance is, does it cause harm to the community? Does it cause harm to neighboring properties? I mean, there's also the hardship criteria, but for the first two, one way to look at this is, does this facade design cause harm to the community or harm to neighboring properties? Well, that's for you to decide. The windows on that ground floor facing Rogers Street, you can clearly see are way more than 40%, so it complies with that standard. So that variance doesn't need to apply to this one. This is building B along the B line. It's kind of, has angles stepping down or stepping across. But each of those facades, there's no step back requirement from the B line, but there is the facade requirement. In fact, along the B line, the requirement is that the windows and doors comprise at least 60%. They're proposing 20 in line with the residential use along there. So this is just sort of an image of that. This is building C from 9th Street. It's the south facade of the building. You can see a step back there. So now it's above the 3rd story, as you can see, but you can also see off to the right that there is a lower level. So the 3 stories that you see closest to 9th Street are levels 2, 3, and 4. And then the level 5, which is the 4th story from 9th Street, is stepped back 15 feet. What doesn't show up as well in this rendering is over on the left-hand side, you see a little bit of a tower peeking up. That whole thing is stepped back 15 feet compared to the building wall that we can see closer, but it goes straight up. It doesn't have a step back at all. So building C requires a variance because the step back height is above the 3rd story instead of above the 2nd story, and because the recessed facade module over there on the left doesn't have any upper floor step back. Again, the ground floor windows and doors, they're proposing at least 20% in line with having dwelling units there where the code would otherwise require 40%. This is the garage, parking garage structure from Fairview. And as you can see there's sort of two facade modules. There's what we can call a tower that's closest to us, and then it steps back a little bit for the part that's on the right. The part that's on the right appears to be 2 stories. They have revised the design a little bit. It looks like it's actually only going to be 1 story. In either case, it doesn't go above where a step back needs to be, so that part's fine. The part with the tower does go up 3 stories here without any step back. So that requires a variance as well. The petitioner anticipates that the windows of the parking garage on the ground floor portions will comply with the facade opening standards, as well as with separate standards for parking garage facade design. So it doesn't need a variance for those, but it does need a variance for the upper floor step back. So to the proposed findings in the packet are several pages of findings. The highlights here are that for the first criteria, that it is not injurious to public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. For each of the UDO standards that the petition is requesting relief from, the proposed project achieves or addresses the goals and purpose of the UDO standard by other means, ensuring that the intent of the UDO to protect public health, safety, morals, and general welfare is upheld. And I do want to read from a little bit about the ground floor dwelling units. There is currently ample developable area within the certified technology part and the SD character area to develop the light industrial, manufacturing, and office uses related to innovation and technology that the character area seeks to promote. Dedicating some of the land within the ST character area to primarily residential use will not interfere with the current stage of development of the area as a technology park. In contrast, there is currently a pressing need for more housing, including affordable housing, throughout Bloomington and the surrounding area. The proposed development can help toward meeting the current pressing need for housing. Approval of the requested variance to allow ground floor dwelling units at this time will not foreclose or significantly restrict the future development of the Trades District or the rest of the certified technology park as a hub for innovation and technology. The proposed development complements the surrounding land uses and transitions density appropriately. To the second criterion, the full proposed findings are in the packet, but the summary is that the finding is of no substantial adverse impacts to the use and value of surrounding properties. None of the requested variances will limit the current use or future redevelopment of any surrounding properties. And to the third criterion, again, the full findings are in the packet, but the summary is that there's unique property configuration, the relatively narrow frontage on Rogers Street compared to the depth and total area of the property, and the limited opportunities for access from 9th and Fairview Street result in limited access and limited visibility of the site. There are practical difficulties. Strict application of the UDO results in practical difficulties in the use of the property, including practical difficulties for the specific use and site design that the petitioner has proposed, as well as site design in general because of the shape and multiple frontages. The requested variances provide the minimum relief necessary to overcome these practical difficulties. So based on the recommended findings that are in the packet, the department recommends that the board adopt the proposed findings and approve all 4 requested variances with 4 conditions. So the 4 conditions are: first, that the project shall earn the affordable housing incentive established in the UDO as demonstrated in an approved site plan, that the site shall provide a new multi-use trail with access easement that's open to the public, providing a direct pedestrian and bicycle connection for Rogers Street at the B line to Reverend Butler Park, as shown on the submitted conceptual site plan, and as demonstrated in an approved site plan. And the third, the variances are approved only for the proposed buildings as shown on the submitted conceptual site plan. Any future additions or new structures on the property shall comply with all applicable standards in the UDO. And then the fourth, because the variances, some of the recommended findings have to do with the specific facade design shown. All building facades shall conform to the facade design shown on the submitted conceptual site plan, including materials, facade layout, and detailing. Minor changes that are consistent with the intent of the submitted design shall be considered compliant with this condition, and the determination whether a proposed change to facade design is compliant with this condition shall be made by the Planning and Transportation Department. That provides some certainty that you're looking at what the buildings are going to look at, and you can make a judgment about the aesthetics and the effect on the character of the city by looking at them, but also give them a little bit of leeway if it turns out that it's that shade of brick isn't available or something like that. With that, that is the end of the staff report. Thank you.
May I ask all those from the petitioner's party who intend to speak, whether now or in the final portion, to step forward? Let's get all of you to do the same as we did initially. Let's have you all sign in first. Once you're all done signing in, then we'll get your names and get you all sworn in, and then we'll start your presentation. So go ahead and step forward, and let's have everyone sign the docket here. You're all signed in? Okay. Come forward, each of you, and say your name into the mic.
Bert Coffin with ESG Architects.
Haley Bragados with Graystar.
Carmen Deaton with Kimley Horn.
And Tim Oakes.
Thank you. Now, do you all affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. And again, you'll have 20 minutes. Whatever you don't use now, you'll be able to address anything you'd like before any motion is taken by the board. You may go ahead and begin, and once you begin, we'll start the clock. Thank you for being so efficient. I appreciate that.
Good to see you, by the way.
Yes, they took the time during the changeover. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, we have a really brief presentation. We'll keep it short and leave time for plenty of questions. So Haley Bragados with Graystar. Really appreciate everybody's time tonight. Appreciate staff. Up until this point, we've done a lot of coordination over the last several weeks and probably over a month at this point to get us to today. So appreciate the time. If you want to just flip real quick to the next slide. I think our agenda really high level is just to introduce ourselves, tell you a little bit about Graystar as a firm, and then I'm going to let Bert do most of the speaking and talk about the site plan and the design. So this is a real quick snapshot of who we are. Graystar, some of you may know, is kind of a big institutional firm. This is really our project team as it relates to the Midwest. We support kind of the Midwest day to day. Most of us live in the Midwest. And in the event of Kimley Horn and Ice Miller, we're local. So I'm really excited to have this team behind us. ESG, we've done 10 plus multifamily projects with in the Midwest, Kimley Horn, a multitude, both regionally and national, and super thankful to have Tim supporting us here locally. So, not here today is John, Chris, and Austin, who sit in the Midwest as well, and will be supporting this deal moving forward. This is the Graystar platform. I won't belabor this too much for those of you that know kind of our name. Graystar was formed in 1993. Fast forward about 30 years, and we've become the largest multifamily developer and operator in the country. We've got about 1 million beds under operations today globally. We've got, on the development side, about 480 projects we've sponsored to date, which is approximately 150,000 units. I think that what that really stands for is just our proven track record for execution. We're starting about 30 projects a year across the country. And then I would just say our capital partners span a multitude of folks. We're probably upwards of 65 active at this point. So we really lean into kind of the diversity of the firm and our skills, but I think on a day-to-day we act very entrepreneurial in a regional sense. And so the 5 folks you saw on the screen previously are the folks you'll be talking to on the Graystar side on the day-to-day and managing the project. But did just want to kind of share, who Graystar is at a high level. And then the next slide is really just meant to kind of highlight some of our regional portfolio. A couple of these are done with ESG, actually. We've found great success in the Midwest. We've capitalized about $1.2 billion across 15 projects. We manage 25,000 units. I believe about 2,000 of those are here locally. So, you know, just really kind of proud of what this team is. We understand the Midwest. We love the Midwest. We love to see it grow, and just really excited to be here today and appreciate everybody's time. So with that, I'll hand it over to Bert to kind of run us through the design real quick.
Great, thank you, Haley. Board members, thank you. Good evening. I'm Bert Coffin with ESG Architects out of Minneapolis. Could we go to the next site plan? That's perfect. Staff has done a really nice job of describing the project and the variances, so I'm going to try not to repeat. I'm going to do my best to try not to repeat the remarks, but I do want to just briefly highlight some of the attributes of the project and talk a little bit about the design. Obviously, this business that's on the site now has been there for many years, and with it being for sale, it's ready for its next life. And we think that would be as high-quality housing for the city of Bloomington. The project will infill this topographically unique, and as staff has pointed out, just the shape of it is very unique, parcel with a development that we think will be a sensitive transition between the Showers District, which is where we are, I think, and to the west, to the residential to the west and south, and of course to the north as well. From a design point of view, we're proposing a campus approach to visually unify the development. The 3 residential buildings will all face the primary perimeter streets, or the Beeline Trail, and the parking facility will also face Fairview, but will be mostly interior to the site. This parking garage will serve all the residents of the development and will be accessed from Rogers Street, which is the primary entrance to the development. And residents will easily be able to access their buildings from this parking garage. The site has an irregular shape and about 20 feet, I think it's perhaps even more in a couple places, 20 feet of grade change across the parcel, which is made for a challenging site layout. We're working with the topography as much as possible to tuck the buildings into the grade where we can. This has the benefit of making them appear shorter from around the site, such as with Building C, which staff showed the rendering of earlier. Instead of it appearing from 9th Street as a 5-story building, it appears as a 4-story building. And the parking garage is similar. We're kind of tucking it into the hillside there against Fairview. The unique geometry of the site also creates physical constraints that do not appear in most property parcels that at least I've worked on. For instance, the rounded curve of the property line at the Beeline Trail is especially challenging. We approached the site design here by stepping the buildings as opposed to facing a few longer facades along the perimeter there. So buildings A and B along that trail will be experienced as a series of smaller masses that emerge as you kind of move along the Beeline Trail. So they will kind of reveal themselves as you're walking or biking along that trail. We think this reduces the impact of the mass, and it also creates a series of courtyard and green spaces that will be used for landscaping and stormwater features. Massing is also addressed with the upper floor step backs. As staff has noted, buildings A and C have significant top floor step backs to reduce the appearance of bulk on those buildings. We believe a top floor step back allows for a more context sensitive design and is a traditional step back location where a change in material occurs and typically occurs. So sometimes on older buildings, basemental top, you see an attic story, and sometimes that will often be a different material, and it will often be stepped back a bit. So that is a nice, we feel like that's a nice feature. Additional step backs are difficult on this site because of the unique site constraints that we've mentioned, which really limit the ability to achieve efficient double-loaded standard floor depths, which are really critical for a successful development. Since the massing approach will create quite a bit of building variation in itself, the architectural design and material palette will be more restrained in keeping with some of the historic buildings within the immediate district, including City Hall, where we are right now. Maybe we can go to an elevation.
Could you hold the clock for a second and go back to that slide, please? The only reason is procedurally is our packet contains a different graphic than this. Which one is accurate, the one in our packet or this one? This one contains the lake. The ones being presented contain lakes. The retail space is different, and then there's a few other design changes.
My apologies, Chair. This is the incorrect one. So the one that was in the staff packet is correct.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that.
That was very good of you to notice that.
Okay.
Our
That's okay then. That's what I needed to know to make sure that we're all referencing the correct articles. So we'll go ahead and I'll let you get reset here, and when you're ready, we'll restart the clock. Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you. So the three residential buildings will share a similar design language, as you all have seen here with brick, but they will be differentiated with tonally different brick blends. So each building won't be exactly the same. You can kind of see that here from Rogers. The building on the left will have building C, a slightly different brick blend than the building B on the right. The upper floors and building corners will feature a board and batten expression to lighten the appearance of these zones and provide added textural quality. And ground floor entrances obviously will have larger and more welcoming transparent zones for residents when they enter, and entries from the street as well. So I'll close with just a few comments here about other community benefits for the project. New sidewalks, boulevards, canopy street trees, and front yard landscaping will improve existing pedestrian conditions and create an attractive and welcoming residential environment. This would be especially true on Fairview Avenue, where there's not a sidewalk on the parcel side of the project. As noted, the new multi-use trail will connect Rogers Street and Fairview Street. This new transparent retail space will be located at the main entrance to the site, and I think it was explained very well why we need a variance for that setback. The building frontages facing the Beeline Trail will be heavily landscaped with new trees, shrubs, and pollinator-friendly perennials. We believe that currently there's no stormwater management system on the site, so the new development will comply with the recently updated stormwater standards for the city of Bloomington, greatly improving the existing conditions. And so with that, I'll end my remarks, and thank you very much.
Is anyone else going to speak at this point, or should we hold the clock? How much time do they have in reserve?
About 10 and a half.
All right, so you have 10 minutes that you can speak to anything that comes up between now and then, before a motion is made. We'll go to the board for any questions of the staff or the petitioner at this point before going to the public.
Just a quick question for staff. In terms of the parking garage, how many spaces will that be? Approximately.
I have not seen a number for that. Possibly a petitioner could have a better answer. There is a maximum. I take it back. I have seen a number, but I do not remember what the number was. But we discussed there is a maximum parking allowance for the proposed use, and they were proposing fewer parking spaces than the maximum. But possibly someone from the petitioners could address how many parking spaces are in there?
Well, was your concern that it was more than a maximum, or was it just the number in
Well, I
general?
think just going out, if there was concern on Fairview, it's a pretty narrow street, people coming and going, like the volume of traffic that could potentially be there.
One thing to point out, as was mentioned in the presentation, that the entrance to the garage faces Rogers Street. So obviously, because their driveway connection connects to Fairview, certainly people can come from Fairview or come out of the garage into Fairview. But the garage is where you enter and exit the garage. It's pushing people toward Rogers Street.
Okay. All right,
Plus, it's in the middle of the block too, right?
Right.
Any other questions? I'll throw out. I do want to talk a little bit about this street and everything. Just the only thing that jumped out at me initially that's going to be a little funky is the Beeline cross, which has always been a little weird there because of the angle at which the Beeline attacks Rogers. So on the bottom right corner of this diagram, now we have a street entrance. And I guess my first question, and I don't care who answers it, is this going to become a city street or is this considered internal, owned by the property?
The petitioner may be able to address it better, but our staff's assumption is that it is a private drive. It is not going to be built to city street standards.
So it won't be given a number, it won't be 10th Street Extension or anything, it'll just be given some kind of a name by the development, correct?
Or potentially no name, right?
No name, okay. That's the first thing. My question then goes to the actual, entrance there, because it does kind of look like a street, the size of a street, I assume for effective two-lane traffic. So I am concerned about that, so close to that turn there. Was that at all discussed, or is there anything we can do about our own beeline cross there? Because it's an awkward angle anyway. And with the additional traffic that we're going to generate there going in and out, I want to make sure the city has a beeline cross that's as safe as it can be. Has that been discussed? And do you feel confident that this is going to remain safe?
So, to my knowledge, it has not been discussed. I believe that Greystar has not yet spoken with the engineering department about that. I would say that at this level of design, I don't know what that intersection is going to look like.
Okay.
But I do have confidence that particularly the engineering department will represent their expertise and the knowledge of traffic in the city to be able to work with them to come up with something that is going to work. And there is certainly enough room there within the frontage, within the right-of-way, especially if the variance is granted to set back that building more, that there is enough room there to do whatever the transportation professionals think is the most appropriate there.
I'm sorry, John, did you have some info?
Yeah, I was going to say that we've been having, the Trades District, the mill, have been having conversations with the city's project manager for the CCC grant, and there's discussions about creating a more formal kind of pedestrian crossing for the B line, similar to like we have on South Walnut Street with the activated light crossing. So I think there's, and that's happening before there was any discussions about this particular project.
It's just because there's just more and more pedestrian and bicycle traffic there now than there was initially, especially on that end of the beeline.
And certainly, they're proposing a new trail connection, so there's going to be.
Okay. Well, my main concern was that the city would at least take that and be aware if this is going to happen. That it sounds like from what John said that it's already under.
Yes,
okay.
and they will have to go forward with a site plan petition, a site plan review that involves going to a development review committee, which has representatives from all the city departments.
Well, sure, but I wanted to make sure the city was on top of it. So
we'll also make a note to stay on top of it.
Yeah, because. Yeah, I know that the petitioner will work with the city, but that's something that I'm concerned about, and I'm actually, it sounds like it's already underway. So that was the only reason for that part of the question there. So thank you for that. Any other questions from the? Okay, with that, let's go ahead and go to the public before we come back to the petitioner for any final comments. Do we have anyone from the public who'd like to speak? If so, come forward, sign in, and we'll swear you in. And then say your first and last name, please.
Stephen Boland.
And do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
You have up to 5 minutes.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity. As a member of the newly created Transportation Commission, the question that Mr. Throckmorton raised was interesting to me. I do think that, I do trust that there's going to be an appropriate solution found there, but I do want to put in a pitch for, at the very minimum, a hawk signal. Which you can see down on the on South Rogers Street, a few blocks south. A stop sign. That intersection is going to. I mean, it's already busy. We noted in a previous petition you were listening to that there were more people on the trail next to that building, the Hayes Market building, than on Morton Street, a full street. So, you know, I don't think anybody should pretend that that intersection, I think, again, that it was a very accurate, a very astute observation that it's time we address that intersection somehow. I'm a little surprised that we're not looking at it as a place has a name. I'm sure that the petitioners are going to name the place, but that intersection with this development, it's going to be more than just where the trail happens to cross, and it was a sort of a half thought out solution. Let's fully think it out. That's just the only thing I wanted to add to it, but I appreciate your consideration of this. Thank you.
Any questions? Oh, I'm sorry, wait a minute. Do we have anyone else from the public?
Yes, we do have one member from the public. Rami, if you're able to unmute.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Kathy Romy, and I just have a few questions. One, wondering how many total bedrooms will be in the 370 units. Also had questions about how many parking spaces would be available, and I think someone else asked that question. Does the developer have any idea how long the construction will take for this project? And my last question, are there any plans to upgrade Fairview Street? It's a very narrow, older street, and I see typically, you know, a lot of people are going to be coming in and out of that entrance that will there.
Residents park on the street.
Do you additional comments?
Those are just my questions. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Is there anyone else online who would like to make a comment?
If there's anybody else online, please use the raise hand function or send a message, and we can recognize you.
And do we have to address the two chat comments, or is that something that you're monitoring?
That was Kathy Rami.
Okay, thank you. No one else then from the public?
I don't see anybody else.
Okay. So at this point, before any additional questions from the board, we go back to the petitioner. If you have any comments that you'd like to make, you have 10 minutes, 30 seconds left in your time. Well, it'll be use it or lose it at this point.
Okay, I'm just going to address kind of some of the overarching questions. First, just hitting on safety and traffic, I completely agree. We need to partner well with the city and engineering. We welcome those conversations to make sure we get it right. Safety is at the forefront of everything Greystar does, from the commencing of construction through operations, making sure the neighborhood and the community is safe. So no question there. We'll make sure those conversations formally happen and make sure we get that design right. In regards to the comments about parking, again, our program's still in flux a little bit. I would say generally parking's hovering somewhere around 250, 260 stalls. Kathy, in regards to your question about final bed count, same comment, still working through kind of final mix, but it will be a mix of studios 1s, 2s, and 3s in line with the underlining zoning. From a construction standpoint, we'd expect about a 24-month duration on this project. And then as it relates to Fairview, again, I think that's a conversation with engineering. So again, welcome those conversations. And the only other one I think I had to address probably was about the street. We envision that as an internal street, probably, to the project. But again, open to conversation there. But I think that probably is the short list. I did just want to note, I didn't emphasize this enough in kind of my introduction to Greystar. I think where Greystar sets ourselves apart is we have a huge emphasis on placemaking. We take this unique approach with communities and residents we serve. There is no one-size-fits-all. That's why we hire great shops like ESG who put really beautiful designs together to make the fabric of the community stronger. We acknowledge and like to partner closely with the cities and meet your guys' objectives while also kind of meeting our business objectives. We understand it's a partnership. And then lastly, again, just want to reiterate safety. From the day we put a shovel in the ground to the day the doors open, that's always top of mind for Greystar and kind of at the forefront of how we think. So with that, I think I probably tackled most questions. If not, I apologize. But thank you again, everyone, for your time.
Thank you. You still have time. Anyone else from the petitioner who would like to use that time to speak now? Okay. At this point, then, it'll come back to the board for further discussion and a motion. We'll come back to the board for either action or any additional questions or comments, please.
I do have a comment really quick. I had the same feeling with the original proposal on the site that the the technology park remained a job creator. But I do think that this proposal is a good transition from the downtown area into a residential area. You guys did a great job on that. I do wish there was a little bit more office and retail space in there, but otherwise, I think that this is a great transition from the downtown area into the residential area.
Comments or questions?
A quick comment. This site has been I don't want to say an eyesore because that's not fair. I mean, the historic use of this property served an important purpose for our business community for a long time. This part of town was very different when Fell Iron and was created, and then I think it's now Bloomington Iron and Metal, or there's been some changes. But that use is really no longer appropriate for the rest of the development that's occurring in our downtown and with the trades district in that area. So, I have a long memory because I'm old, but I mean, at one point, this was a either RCRA or CERCLA site because of the historic issues we had in our community with PCB disposal. So with that as a wind-up, I would just say that, I'm excited to see a significant investment of this scale that will add to the vibrancy of this part of the trades district. Appreciate the willingness to make this kind of investment in our community. So with that, I would make a motion that the Board of Zoning Appeals adopt the proposed findings for V21-25/ZR2025-05004 and approve the requested variances with the 4 conditions included in the staff report.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? And any further discussion or comments? I'll start with that, which is those were the only 2 things that I brought up that concern me, and I'm glad that the city is already on it and that there's been action on that, because I do think that crossing could present a problem, and I think that could actually affect the development itself, and that we don't want that to happen. And I appreciate your comments that you made on that. I do also think that street, it's just the way that it's built, does kind of scream that it should be an extension of 10th Street. And I only say that because there has been continued work within the city in extending streets and trying to give some rhyme and reason to what we're doing. And that would follow the outline of 10th Street, which is kind of snaky over there and, right past us here. So down the road, if it is going to be turned over to the city, I think that you guys should probably have the discussion early on, just so make sure it just fits with what we need. Because I do know that down the road, sometimes people just say, oh, we're just going to turn it over when they start getting potholes and stuff, and we don't want to fill it and that type of thing. Not that you would do that, but I do know that that's been a problem in the past. So those are my two comments that I wanted on the record, and I appreciate both sides, the petitioner and the city, in the comments and responses you've had to my questions on that. So thank you. Any other comments or questions? Yes, Flavia.
I was part of the other plan development for this particular site before, and I find this very elegant. The design, what you've done with the site, I think it respects the shape of the site, which is very unique, and also it really brings forth the beeline as the emphasis for what is the highlight of this lot. And I think the way you place the buildings is very elegant, and I think it's going to be a great addition to the city. Thank you.
Real quick to that is, I was on the commission as well when the initial presentation came. I know this has been a lot of work for staff as well as all of you, but I couldn't agree more. I'm kind of glad you guys had to start from scratch in some ways to come up with what you came. You know, we see a lot of different multi-unit developers come through here, and I agree, this is definitely one of the most elegant architectural renderings that I've seen for a space that is as odd as this is. And so I think it's, couldn't agree more with everybody how this is going to be a great transitional piece for that neighborhood right by the tech park. So thank you for all your work.
I will say before we take a vote, I did want to just explain to those in the chambers here that you did see a sidebar that was taking place, and the conversation here was simply procedural so that everyone knew what was happening up here. We were just talking about how we were going to proceed on a certain item. So that doesn't happen very often, but I did want to be transparent on that side. We do have a motion. We have a second. A vote of yes would be to approve this request for variance. A vote of no would be to deny it. I will call the question. Please call.
Shanae?
Yes.
Throckmorton?
Yes.
Ballard?
Yes.
Burrell?
Yes.
Fernandez?
Congratulations. It's unanimously approved. We look forward to seeing how this turns out. Thank you. And do we have any additional business before this board tonight?
Joe,
yes.
One correction in my report for the Parks Department. I incorrectly referenced that the variance was from section 20.04.090. It should be from 20.04.030.
Well, if that's the case, then in the final motion from Mr. Fernandez, please add the 7 before the 4 at the end of the second part of that number that was read, please, if we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty. Any other business before this board?
No.
We are adjourned.